Hi, today we will talk about the critical path method, which is the last step in our steps. Here I need to find the critical activities. The most important use of the network that we have learned how to draw is to determine time needed to complete the project. Okay? And this allows us also to tell which activities are critical to the project completion. When I say critical, this means that if this activity is critical, then any delay in this activity might affect the project completion time. So that's why we refer to it as a critical activity. So we have to determine all the critical activities and we have to determine the critical path. Okay? So this is what we do in the critical path method, because we want to determine the sequence of all the activities that will result in giving us the completion time of the project. Now we have some steps in order to get the CPM method. First of all, we have to construct the network, as we have seen before, determine the duration of each activity. We also did that. The thing that we're gonna do today, the new thing, is that we're gonna create the forward pass calculation in order to determine the earliest possible start and finish time of each activity, and therefore getting the earliest possible completion time of the whole project, and then constructing the backward pass and doing the calculation related to it to determine the latest possible or allowable start and finish time of each activity, and see how this affects the whole completion time of the project. Now, in order to do that, we will be having 4 numbers on each node. Okay, so consider that this is a node. At this corner, we will put the early start of this activity and the early finish of this activity. Okay, we will put them on the upper corners, okay, of the node. Now, how do we calculate the early start and the early finish? Now, this is based on what? On the sequencing of the activity. Let's say that this activity has a predecessor activity that finishes at day 2. So can I start this activity before the completion of the predecessor? No. So the early start of this activity depends on the finish of the previous predecessor activity. So this is my early start. It's going to be at day 2. Then I will say, what is the duration for the completion or the completion time of this activity? Let's say it's 3 days. So how much time do I need? I need 3 days, and I already started at day 2, so 2 plus 3 is 5. So this is the early finishing duration of this activity. So this is how we're gonna create the early start and the early finish of each activity. Now this is the rule that we're gonna follow. The early finish of any activity is the early start plus the duration of this subject activity. Now the same is done for getting the latest start and the latest finish. It is the latest time I can start a certain activity and the latest time at which I can finish a certain activity without affecting the project completion time. I don't want to delay the project, but I can tell how much can I delay the start of this activity without delaying the project. This is calculated. So I will place the latest start and the latest finish at the lower corners of the activity. Okay, this is the node of the activity. I'm gonna place the early start, early finish, okay, on the upper corners, and the latest start, latest finish on the lower corners. Now, if I want to calculate these values, okay, I will be calculating the calculations related to the backward pass. Okay, so I will be going backward in the network. So in order to get the duration or the time for the latest start, I have to go backward. So I will get the latest finish, subtract the duration of the activity in order to get the latest start. We will address how to calculate these numbers in details. Let's begin with the forward pass. So the starting date of the project is assigned, okay? This is my starting milestone, okay? This is the beginning of the project. This is a very important achievement and event. So we refer to it with the milestone, okay? Then I have to move forward with my activities, okay? I'm calculating the forward pass. So I'm moving from left to right in my network with the sequence that I have determined, okay, using the predecessors and the successors, so I know what's the relationship between the activities. So when I do this means that I'm calculating the forward pass, okay? What do I get out of the forward pass? It establishes the earliest start and finish time for each activity on the network, so I can tell what is the earliest possible time to finish or complete the project. Okay, now we have some rules for the forward pass. First of all, the initial activity or the starting activity of the project, it's the activity that has no predecessor, okay? So it's the beginning activity. Always take its early start as 0, okay? Now, what if I have an activity that has more than one predecessor? Let's say we have activity C and it has activity A and B as its predecessors. Now, activity A will finish at day 2 and activity B will finish at day 3. Can I begin activity C at day 2? No, I need for all of its predecessors to finish. So this means that I will wait for activity B until it finishes and it's fully completed at day 3. Then I will be able to begin with activity C. So before beginning any activity, I have to make sure that all of its predecessors are finished and completed. So I will look at the early finish of all the predecessors and I will look which one is the maximum, which one took the longest time to finish. I'm gonna use it in order to determine the early start of the following activity. So this is a rule. And as we said before, the early finish of any activity is the early start of this activity plus its duration. Now let's take this example here. We have the activities, we have the predecessors, and we have the duration. The first step is always drawing the network, as we have seen before. Now I know the sequence. I've put it in the sequence according to each activity and its predecessor. Now I want to do the calculations related to the forward pass. I begin with the start node and connect the starting activities to the start. Okay, we have A and B, they are initial activities in this project, so I connect them with the start. Now we said that the first rule is that this is a beginning activity, so its early start equals to 0. So I begin with 0 for both A and B. Now what is the duration of A? It is 8 weeks. So this is the early start. What will be the early finish? 0 plus 8, 8. This is the rule. Early finish equals to the early start plus duration. Same is done for B. 0 is my early start plus duration of 4, so 0 plus 4 equals to 4. Then I will be looking what comes after A. We have activity C and activity D. Okay, so C cannot start unless A finishes, so start of C cannot be before day 8. This is the early finish of A, so it will be the early start of C. Same for D. I cannot start with D unless A finishes, so I cannot start with D before day 8. So what do? I get the early finish. 8 plus 6, 14. 8 plus 11, 19. Same here for E. I cannot start unless B finishes, so my early start is 4. 4 plus 9, 13. Now what do I have? I have activity F. Also, it cannot be start unless C finishes, so the start of F is 14. Plus 3, 17. Now here I have activity G that has 3 predecessors, F, D, and E. Now this has an early finish of 17, 19, and 13. So what will be the early start of G? Here I have to apply the second rule. I have to look at all the predecessors. Can I begin G, activity G, at day 13? E is done. But can I begin it unless D finishes and F finishes? No. So I have to wait for all these activities to be completed, then I can begin with activity G. So I have to look at all the predecessors and get the maximum early finish. This one has 17, 19, and 13. This is the maximum. So the maximum early finish of all the predecessors will be the early start of G, because I cannot begin G unless all of these activities finish. So I'm forced to wait till day or week 19 in order to begin with activity G. So it's going to be 19 plus 1, 20. Now what's the meaning of this 20? With the forward pass calculations, I was able to get the early start and early finish of all the activities. But what about the completion time of the project? Now I can have a rough estimate about the completion time of the project. I can say that at least I need 20 weeks in order to complete this project. So the forward pass calculations give me an idea about the completion time of the project. Now here I will keep this slide for you in order to get how did I get the calculation, early start and early finish of each activity. If you can go back to it and revise what we have mentioned. Thank you.